I knocked on the door with gifts and my kids dressed for Christmas photos. My mom cracked it open. "We're only doing close family this year." My son held his gift bag and asked, "Do they not want us?" I just said, "Let's go make our own memories." On the way home, I opened my app, froze the family card, and canceled the AutoPay on my brother's lease. 10 minutes later, my dad called yelling. I've never felt more embarrassed in front of my kids. They were both standing on either side of me. My son gripping the gift bag with both hands like it was a treasure chest. And my daughter still trying to balance her Santa hat just right. We'd been planning this for weeks. Matching sweaters, family photo prints, even handmade cards. They were buzzing with excitement when we pulled into my parents' driveway. I hadn't told them we weren't invited, mostly because I didn't believe it myself. We walked up to the door like we belonged there because for a long time we did. When my mom finally opened it, she didn't even pretend to look surprised. Just stood there half blocking the entrance like I was selling magazines. Her voice was flat. "This year we are only celebrating with our closest relatives." That was it. No smile, no explanation, nothing. I looked down at my kids. My daughter stopped adjusting her hat. My son stared at her like he hadn't heard her right. "They don't want us." I didn't respond. I just nodded once, turned around, and told them quietly, "Let's make our own memories." I could feel the heat in my face, but I didn't let it show. Not in front of them. I held it in until we were back in the car. I got behind the wheel, waited until the doors were shut, then took out my phone, opened the bank app, that family card my parents used, gas, groceries, Christmas shopping. They swiped it like it was theirs. I froze it, then went into the AutoPay settings and shut down the $1,100 I'd been sending every month for Jared's rent. My brother, the one with a degree in finance but no job for 2 years, who always somehow had concert tickets and a new phone case every time I saw him. 3 months ago, my parents had called me at 9 p.m. on a Sunday. Said Jared was in a rough spot. Said the rent had to be paid by the next morning or he'd be out. I didn't even argue, just paid it because they said it was an emergency because they said family takes care of each other. Funny how that works. 10 minutes after I froze everything, my phone rang. Dad's name lit up. I answered, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" No preamble, no asking why we left. No checking on the kids. Just straight to rage because they noticed the card stopped working because Jared probably called in a panic when his rent payment bounced. Because money, not people, is what triggered them. I didn't say much back. Just told him we were heading home, that the kids were fine. He kept yelling. Said I was petty. Said I was ruining Christmas. Said this wasn't how a family acted. And then he actually said this, "You don't get to take things away just because you're mad we had a small gathering." I pulled over after that, sat there in silence while the kids watched the lights on the houses go by. I could feel the anger building in my chest like pressure behind a dam. They humiliated me in front of my children. They pretended we didn't exist. And now I was the problem. They wanted to make it about money. Fine. I've been paying more than they knew. Not just the rent, not just the card. My dad's medical bills, prescriptions, therapy, checkups. They were covered by a plan I paid into every month quietly because I wanted to help. Because I thought it mattered. That was about to change. They picked the wrong night to draw a line. The morning after Christmas, I was still trying to keep things normal for the kids. We stayed in pajamas until noon, made cinnamon rolls, and they took turns playing DJ on the Bluetooth speaker. But under all that, I was stewing. Not even angry, just stunned by how casually my parents had tossed us aside. I wasn't even sure they realized how humiliating it was to be turned away on their doorstep like strangers while my kids stood there waiting to be let in. I ignored my dad's first call. Then the second. The third came at 10:34 a.m. and I finally picked up just to get it over with. He didn't ask how the kids were. Didn't mention what happened at the door. He went straight into it like we were picking up a conversation we never had. Why did the card decline at the pharmacy last night? I had to use my own damn credit card. No apology, no mention of what they did, just complaints. He acted like I made a clerical error. Like I forgot to reload a gift card. I didn't say much. Just told him I had turned off the family card and canceled Jared's rent payment. There was silence, then an explosion. He accused me of being vindictive, of punishing everyone over a simple misunderstanding. He used that word, misunderstanding, as if shutting us out on Christmas Eve was a scheduling error. He said I'd embarrassed them in front of their friends. That Jared called in a panic when the rent bounced, and now everyone in the family group chat was talking about my behavior. I didn't know what part to laugh at first. The idea that anyone thought I owed them an explanation or that they were offended I'd pulled the plug after being humiliated in front of my own children. I hung up before it got worse. 3 hours later, my mom texted me, "If you're choosing to act like you're not part of this family, that's fine. Just know that when we finalize the will, you'll be excluded. You've made that choice clear." That was the part that really showed me who they were. Not the door slam, not the Christmas rejection, but the assumption that I cared more about their money than my dignity. Like the will was leverage. Like I dropped to my knees and apologized just to stay on the list for the 2-bedroom condo and the rusty SUV they couldn't get appraised last summer. I didn't even bother replying. But it did make one thing crystal clear. They thought everything could be bought or threatened. That love came with conditions. That loyalty had a price. They really had no idea how far I was willing to take this. A few days passed with no contact. Then Monday morning rolled around and I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was, "Dad," he sounded winded and for once quiet. "Your mother's been crying every night. My blood pressure's up. My appointments are getting canceled. We need that card back on. This isn't about money. It's about respect." That last part almost made me throw my phone. Respect from the same people who left my son standing on their porch holding a bag of gifts. Who told me to my face that we weren't part of their close family. That night I got another text, a photo. My dad on their living room couch with a blanket over him, holding his chest like he was starring in some amateur soap opera. The caption underneath said, "He's not doing well. No money for prescriptions now. I hope you're proud." I stared at that picture for a full minute before locking my phone. It was pathetic. It was also the last straw. That photo of my dad lying on the couch with a blanket pulled over him like he was starring in a commercial for seasonal depression. It didn't land the way they hoped. The caption underneath, "He's not doing well. No money for prescriptions now. I hope you're proud," was so theatrical, I half expected it to be followed by a Venmo request. They didn't know I still had access to the health portal. I checked his account. The blood pressure, meds, and cholesterol refill were paid for and waiting at the pharmacy. Not only had I already covered that month, but they hadn't even bothered to pick them up. They were lying, faking illness to try and shame me into turning the money back on. And I was supposed to feel guilty. That was the moment I realized they didn't just want help. They expected it. Entitlement had turned into something else entirely. They believed I owed it to them no matter how they treated me or my kids. So, I opened my laptop and took the next step. I didn't just cancel the card and Jared's rent. I terminated the health insurance plan I'd enrolled them in 2 years ago. It was a private plan I paid out of pocket for quietly without their asking after Dad lost his coverage when his last employer went under. I covered the full monthly premium myself. Every doctor visit, every prescription, every copay. Not a single thank you. Not even once. I canceled it with 2 clicks. Then I logged out and sat there staring at the screen. They wanted to act like I didn't exist. Fine. Let's see how they manage without the invisible safety net I've been holding under them. 3 days later, I got the first explosion. A call from Jared, of course, the same guy who still lists his job as freelance consultant, even though I know for a fact he hasn't worked since he got fired from that crypto startup. He was furious. Started yelling the second I picked up. They got a letter saying the insurance is Ken-led. Are you seriously that spiteful? I asked him if he picked up Dad's medication yet. He got quiet for a second, then changed the subject. This isn't about me. This is about Dad. You're messing with his life just because your feelings got hurt. I didn't bother arguing. I told him to figure it out, that I wasn't financing this circus anymore. That night, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered, and for a few seconds there was just silence on the other end. Then my mom's voice low and shaky. "Your father collapsed this afternoon. His blood pressure is through the roof. We don't have insurance anymore. We can't afford to see anyone." If something happens to him, it's going to be on your conscience. There it was. The nuclear option. Blame. Even now, after they'd humiliated my kids and tried to spin it as a misunderstanding, they were trying to make me the villain. I didn't respond right away. She kept talking. Said the pharmacy wouldn't release the medication because the system flagged the account. That they were being treated like trash at the clinic. She started crying. I stayed silent. Then something happened I didn't expect. My daughter, who had come into the room without me noticing, picked up my phone from the bed. She looked at the screen, then spoke clearly into the call. Why did you say we're not close family? There was a pause. My mother didn't answer. Then she started to say my daughter's name, but it was too late. I took the phone back and ended the call. That night, both of my kids stayed in my bed. My son curled up by my side, clutching his little stuffed reindeer, and my daughter just lay there staring at the ceiling. No one said anything for a while. We didn't need to. That one question had cut through every lie, every guilt trip, every manipulation attempt. And it didn't come from me. They were starting to see it, too. That what we had wasn't just about money or insurance or cards. It was about respect. And finally, they were starting to understand that you don't get to hurt people just because you share blood. The silence was the most suspicious part. After all the yelling, accusations, emotional blackmail, and photo ops, it went dead quiet. No more. He's not doing well. Texts. No more. This will be on your conscience. Voicemails. Even Jared, who had never met a fight he didn't jump into with both thumbs, hadn't messaged in 3 days. I expected something. A cousin sent to mediate a guilt trip disguised as a group prayer chain. Nothing. So, when my phone rang that Thursday morning with an unknown number, I figured it was spam. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, I pressed play, holding the phone loosely in one hand while pouring cereal. Hi, this is Karen from Eden Pines' assisted living. Your father listed you as his primary emergency contact. We had a call placed on his behalf from a local health clinic requesting short-term care. He mentioned you'd be handling financials. Please give us a call. I stopped mid-pour. Cereal spilled across the counter. The kids looked up from the table. I called back immediately and the woman confirmed everything without hesitation. Yes, Thomas Morgan Sr. had been admitted. Yes, he arrived with no insurance and only one small suitcase. Yes, he listed me as the person responsible for next of-kin decisions. I asked who brought him in. Your mother and another male relative. She said they didn't leave a number. Just your name and number on the intake paperwork. I laughed. They dumped him. After all the noise, the drama, the threats, they dropped him off like a broken appliance and walked away. And they didn't even tell me. They just scribbled my name down and disappeared. That was when it hit me. All the talk about family, legacy, inheritance, it was never about love. It was about who was easiest to exploit. And when they couldn't milk me anymore, they left me with the bill anyway. Around 4:00 p.m. Jared finally texted. FYI, Dad's at Eden Pines. We had no choice. Mom's been overwhelmed. If you don't want to deal with it, you'll need to arrange something. We're not in a position to manage this. No apology, no explanation. Just dumping the responsibility and wiping his hands clean. I didn't respond. I waited until the kids went to sleep, then drove to Eden Pines. The front desk buzzed me in, and I was escorted to a small room that smelled like mint and industrial soap. There he was in a recliner, hooked up to a machine that beeped every few seconds. His face looked older than I remembered, worn out. His hand twitched slightly like he was dreaming. A nurse stepped in, glanced at me, then back at him. He's been asking about his son, she said. I nodded. She hesitated. He said, not the one who dropped him off. The other one. The one who always handled things. I stood there for a second, letting that sink in. He remembered. Through all the noise, he knew who had actually shown up over the years, who covered the bills, who got up at 2 a.m. to fix things they broke, who held this family together longer than he probably deserved. But that didn't change what they'd done. I asked the nurse how long he could stay without insurance. She looked at the chart, then said, 3 more days before we have to discharge or convert him to a state plan, if he qualifies. I walked out without saying anything else. The next morning, I got a new message. This time from my mother. You saw him, didn't you? I hope that hurt. Maybe now you'll understand what happens when you stop caring about family. I stared at it, mouth slightly open. No shame, no regret. She was spinning it like I had abandoned them. So I replied, no. Now I understand exactly what family means to you, and I don't want any part of it. Then I blocked her number for good. 3 days later, Eden Pines called again. They were polite but firm. My father would need to be discharged by noon unless alternate arrangements were made. He didn't qualify for the state plan yet because they didn't have enough financial records. Apparently, someone had listed his occupation as retired consultant with no income and failed to provide any documentation. I knew exactly who that someone was. I asked what would happen if no one picked him up. The woman on the phone hesitated, then said he'd likely be transferred to a county facility. Not the kind with memory foam pillows and bingo nights. The kind with shared bathrooms and staff that call you, sir, once every 4 hours. I told her I wasn't coming. An hour later, Jared called me from an unknown number. I didn't pick up, but the voicemail that followed was different. His voice was shaky. I don't know what to do. Mom's been a mess, and Dad's not making sense. He thinks you're still handling everything. I told him you were done, but he didn't believe me. He kept saying you'd show up. I played the message twice. Not because I was reconsidering anything, but because that last part stuck with me. He kept saying you'd show up. He really didn't get it. Even after everything they did, he still thought I was going to fix it. And that told me all I needed to know. My whole life, they didn't see me as a person, just a problem solver. A walking credit card. The one who'd show up, pay the bill, drive them home, and say nothing. Even when they humiliated me in front of my kids, even when they made my son ask, they don't want us, they still thought I'd show up. That night, my daughter found an old photo album in the closet. She brought it to the living room and sat down next to me. Is this Grandma? She asked, pointing at a faded picture of my mother at some picnic table years ago. I nodded. Are we going to see her again? I paused. Not unless something changes. She seemed to think about that for a moment, then closed the book. I think I'm okay with that. I didn't say anything. I just watched her get up and walk to her room, calm and certain. The next morning, I got one last message. This time from my mother's email. The subject line said, "You win." It was short, just a few lines. We tried to teach you about loyalty. You taught us about punishment. Congratulations. When you hear we've passed, don't bother coming. That was the message. No, we're sorry. No, we went too far. Just an ego bruised by consequence. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to myself, archived it, then deleted her contact. They had made their choice. And now, finally, I had made mine. It's been 5 weeks since I blocked them. No more calls, no more texts, nothing in the mail, just complete, deliberate silence. I thought maybe Jared would try again. Maybe guilt me into one last phone call or pretend he wanted to talk things out. He didn't, which told me even he finally understood the wall wasn't coming down this time. Then last Thursday, I got a letter from a state-run health facility. It was official looking, typed in that gray bureaucratic font. My dad had been transferred. It was a generic notice that I'd been listed as his emergency contact. Again, no request for money, no guilt, just paperwork. He'd been moved to a long-term care center an hour out of town. I didn't respond. I didn't even open the envelope all the way. I dropped it in a drawer and haven't looked at it since. 2 days after that, my daughter came home from school with a family tree project. One of those cut and paste assignments where they want you to fill in grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. She brought it to me and pointed at the top row. I don't want to put them on here. I asked why. She shrugged. They weren't really family on Christmas. I didn't have to say anything. I just nodded. That night, we started our own tradition. Just me, her, and my son. We ordered Chinese food, played board games until someone cried over losing, then fell asleep watching a movie on the couch. No decorations, no matching pajamas, just laughter, peace. And then 2 days ago, something wild happened. I got a call from a lawyer. He asked for me by name, said he was representing my parents. Apparently, they were now revising their will again. This time, I'd been formally removed. He said it like it was supposed to be news. I actually laughed out loud. I told him, "That's fine. Just be sure to leave a little extra for Jared's rent." He didn't say anything for a second, then cleared his throat and said, "They also requested I inform you that any remaining debt they have will be settled through the estate. However, they've specified they do not want you involved in any medical or end-of-life decisions." I told him that was the best gift they could have given me. I hung up and looked at the kids who were in the kitchen arguing over who got the last spring roll. They didn't know it yet, but they'd already inherited the only thing that mattered. Freedom. No one screaming, no emotional traps, no guilt for just existing. My parents made it clear I wasn't part of their version of family. Good, because we're building a better one without them. The update. I honestly thought the chapter had closed. There was nothing left to say. They made it clear I was out of the picture by choice, really. But still, the lawyer's call, the threats, the disinheritance, all of it had become background noise. I didn't even think about them anymore unless something reminded me. And even then, the memories felt like someone else's life. So when the letter came, it knocked the air out of me. It showed up on a Saturday. Just a plain white envelope. No return address, no stamp, no postmark. It had been dropped in the mailbox by hand. That told me two things immediately. One of them was still nearby, and they didn't want it traced. I opened it at the kitchen counter while the kids were still upstairs. Inside was a single sheet of paper. My father's handwriting, shaky, slanted, familiar. He started by saying he was writing without my mother's knowledge. Said she wouldn't approve. Said she still thought I was testing them and would eventually come around. But he knew I wasn't. He said he could tell the moment he saw me at Eden Pines. "I thought you were just angry," he wrote, "but I saw it in your face. You were finished, and I don't blame you." I kept reading, leaning against the counter, eyes moving faster with each line. He admitted he hadn't understood the weight of what he'd put on me. That for years he assumed I would keep showing up, keep fixing things because I always had. He said that deep down he thought being that responsible one meant I could handle anything. "But I never asked how much of yourself you were giving up just to keep us afloat." That line stuck with me. Still does. He didn't make excuses. He didn't try to twist it around. In fact, he never once used the word sorry, but for some reason that made the letter feel more honest. He ended with this: "You're not the villain in this story, and you never were. I think we just mistook your silence for agreement when it was really exhaustion. I won't ask for anything. I just needed you to know I see it now." That was it. I folded the letter and sat down at the table, just staring out the window for a while. The house was quiet. My daughter came downstairs a few minutes later carrying her tablet, completely unaware that her grandfather had just handed me the first real acknowledgement I'd ever received from him. I didn't tell her, not because I wanted to hide it, but because it didn't change anything. Not really. We were still going on our trip, still sleeping through the night without phone calls or financial emergencies, still living in peace. That letter didn't erase the damage, but it did one thing I didn't expect. It softened the edge. He hadn't earned a relationship back, but he'd earned the truth being heard. I put the letter in a box I keep in my closet. It's not a shrine. It's not a keepsake. But maybe one day when my kids are older, they'll find it and understand the full story. How family isn't just blood. It's choices. And I finally made mine. That night, after the kids went to bed, I sat on the couch with the lights off and read the letter again. I read it slower this time, stopping at certain lines like I was waiting for them to mean something more. Maybe I was. A part of me kept expecting it to turn. Some manipulative twist, a hidden guilt trip. But it never came. Just quiet, overdue recognition. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just felt tired. The kind of tired you feel when something heavy finally gets set down and you realize how long you've been holding it.